Hello, welcome to Murder We Spoke.
I'm Rachel.
I'm Matt, and today we're going to be talking about something very interesting in regards to... Yeah, we decided this was a cool start for our murder podcast. So anybody that's fascinated with the macabre or murder or murderers in general, this is for you. So, especially all the, like, basic white girls out there that just love, like, murder stories or whatever. I don't know why. It's, like, the biggest thing. But, whatever. I guess I'm a basic white dude, so I also find this stuff interesting.
Does that make us basic white people?
Yeah, we're basic white people.
Okay.
I mean, we're the...
Standard.
Oh, yeah. So, Jack the Ripper. What's your knowledge of Jack the Ripper?
I know General.
Do you know Jack?
I know Jack.
Oh, snap.
I do know Jack.
All right, yeah.
I don't know in depth, but I do know... I wouldn't say the basics, because I know a little bit more than the basics, but not, like, in-depth expert on it.
Damn.
But I do have a general knowledge of some things.
All right. And you're very knowledgeable in regards to all these kinds of murderers in general.
I'm very big, and I just haven't put in the extra time to do, like, the physical, like, there's a lot for Jack the Ripper. And they haven't caught him, so no spoilers.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest mysteries is who he actually is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's crazy that he got away with it.
Yeah, but I mean, at the time, it's not like how forensic is nowadays where, and I'm sure there was people that contaminated all the scenes of the crime and everything.
I'm sure everybody was walking through those scenes, going with their shoes, with their mom and their dad, walking through and going, piece of art, good soup.
Take your kid to work day. It's like, oh, there she is, look at that, cover your... like, oh my God. Oh... So, so that's... Jack the Ripper is a crazy dude because, he, like you said, he's somebody that is a mystery. He's a ghoul, and that's how he's portrayed a lot of the times. He's definitely like the boogeyman. A mystery person that, you want your kids to be fearful of. Yeah, stranger danger. Like one of the OG stranger dangers that, technically didn't seem to be a threat to kids, but that would be something like when I was...
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
It really depends.
Unless you're a prostitute.
It was in one trade. He really liked one trade of people, and it was prostitutes.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what age they were. If you look it up, you can see the victims, the known victims that he had. They were old, young, pretty, not pretty. I mean, we're not going by how pretty they were. But he didn't care. It was like he had some kind of vendetta against prostitutes.
Yeah, he had a big old gripe against prostitutes. It's crazy. I mean, that's generally the thing with serial killers for the most part. They go for, like, the people that are, not really the main portions of society or somebody that's like, this person wouldn't get cared about.
They were so low in society that prostitutes are seen as, like, nothing.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons why they think whoever killed them wasn't of that same class, because... if you were of that same class, you wouldn't see them as, like, just nothing.
Yeah.
Like
you
wouldn't see him as, like, garbage. Yeah. He saw him as garbage. Because the way he left them and what he did to them.
Yeah, how badly he mutilated
took pieces
them and everything.
Of them.
Yeah, especially since he mailed them. Like, mailed the police pieces of the people
of
that
the bodies.
He dissected and everything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oi. But, so I think that's a pretty good, like, gist of Jack the Ripper. But I see you had a couple of links. In regards to Jack the Ripper. The thing that I was surprised most about was, like, how kind of recent it was. Like, when I originally was, like, showing movies of Jack the Ripper, I don't think I ever really picked up on the idea that, or the fact that it was, like, back in 1888.
It wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't really that long ago. Yeah.
And, like, if it ever happened... nowadays, I think he maybe would have been caught.
Yeah.
But then again, there is plenty of other killers who
Gilgo Beach.
haven't got caught. Gilgo
Which
Beach,
is, I would say,
for
like
example.
our modern Jack the Ripper,
Yeah.
the Gilgo Beach Killer.
The
because
ghost.
that person's still a mystery
Yeah.
as well. Like, nobody knows who it is. And what's crazy about it is that there aren't even, like, actual any suspects for the Gilgo Beach Killer. At least Jack the
same
Ripper,
executive-
they had an idea of,
Yeah,
like,
they had-
okay, it's
but
this
that was,
cluster.
But that was later on. They
Yeah.
had suspects, like, nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have suspects back then. I mean, they did, but they interviewed all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them, they were like, well, they could be, but literally anybody on the street could be.
Yeah.
Your local barber could be. Your local butcher
Mm-hmm.
could be. Your local surgeon could be. Your doctor practicing could be. It could even be a female.
Yeah. Which
And
is
that's
crazy.
another theory that's been around, that it was a female, and that it, everybody overlooked them because they were like, they were a midwife, and they would have been covered in blood normally going home from a shift or whatever they called it back then, work,
Yeah.
your life, and they wouldn't have blinked twice at it.
Yeah. Then I don't think they would... I feel like it would be kind of misogynistic back then, because I don't think they would have thought of a female doing something
Yeah.
like that, like being capable of something like that. I feel like that, of course, they're going to attribute it to a man. I mean, the majority of the people, the 5 people that I saw listed on, like, one of the links that we'll see later on, it's all men. It's,
Yeah, it's all men. They didn't even, they're like, no way a woman couldn't kill another woman.
Yeah.
There's no way that could ever happen. But as we've
It's
seen
possible.
in history, nowadays, it is very possible for a woman to kill another woman.
Yeah, there's those femme fatales out there.
But I think that would have been a perfect cover. I think that would have been a perfect cover as somebody that kills people. You're back then at least, not right now, because, everything is way different now. But back then it would have been like, she's a woman, there's no way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's my personal opinion, is
I
that
agree.
that would be like the only way. Well,
That
not
is
the
the
only
perfect
way,
cover.
but-
Being like, all right, you're too weak, you're a female. Like, that
I'm
would be the thinking back then. Like, nowadays, everybody understands that women could work. Women could do everything that a man could do.
Yeah. Now.
Perfectly capable
Yeah.
of. But back then, it's like, okay, you have to wear your girdle
your
and
girdle, there's
everything.
not like-
And you got to be like 80 pounds
Yeah.
to be like the ideal perfect woman.
And it's interesting when you actually look at the letters. The letters themselves are written very interestingly.
Yeah, like
But
very
I mean, like,
long.
I can't really say that either, because a lot of everybody's handwriting back then was very detailed. But this almost looked like a female's handwriting. And they got DNA off of the post-it note, like the post-it that you put on the letter. And they said that, well, that's female DNA. The least we can tell is that's a female, not a male DNA, unless they had an accomplice that would mail or write the letters. So that, you're kind of left with absolutely nothing.
Could be a married couple, just like that couple that had that horror house with all the trap doors and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another story.
Yeah, that'll be another podcast in its own.
Do those letters and stuff exist online as well? Where you
Yes,
can actually see
absolutely.
them?
Surprisingly, a good chunk of the letters and the evidence that they had back in the day was destroyed in like World War II
No, but
during
they
the
have
Blitz.
the pictures of it. They have pictures of it. They can actually tell that, at least as far as I know, they could tell that the blood that the letters were written in were the blood of the victims. As far as I can tell, that's a little like loose, because I don't know how they would be able to tell that, considering they didn't have all that kind of stuff back then.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
They just assumed that the blood that it was written in, because you can clearly see it's written in blood. They didn't have like red ink pens. I'm sure they have red ink, but
It just wasn't common like nowadays, where it's like if you want to mark a test, you got that
red
pen
ink.
guy.
No,
Yeah,
it was
you
just
got
all
that
black.
red ink
You
all over.
couldn't afford
Yeah.
red ink if you were like anybody of even that class. So that kind of eliminates half of the people in that same, class. And like it makes me feel bad, because all these women who were killed were like just trying to do their job, like just trying to make money.
Yeah, they were
enough
just
to
trying
survive.
to make ends meet, so that way they could have a roof over their head or like a meal for the day and everything like that. Because the poverty was like going
Bad.
ham during
was
that
bad.
period of time.
And especially
Yeah.
in that one section, which was Whitechapel,
Yep.
if I'm not
Yep.
wrong. It was all generally in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
So you would, like, if you look up a map, the map I have up, I don't know is exactly accurate because there's 7. So I don't want to be wrong about that. But as far as the main victims, they were all relatively in the same area. Almost like the killer knew exactly where to go to access, these kind of women. Like, they're experienced in it. I also feel like you have to have some kind of, like, hatred toward us. Like, for example, there's a lot of murderers nowadays who, have mommy issues or had issues with their mother or had issues with a specific woman who was doing something specifically, or your wife, for example. So if you think about it, it has to be somebody who has a deep anger towards prostitutes. Why would you be angry at a prostitute last year?
I don't know, like we were discussing before the podcast started, there's the possibility that maybe you got like a sexually transmitted disease where it's kind of like, one of those ones that's incurable. Something that you can't just take some penicillin
Syphilis?
and, like maybe had some syphilitic insanity or maybe hepatitis C or something. And he's like, well, I know this is fatal, so might as
Or
well
not
go
even
on
that.
with the spree.
I feel like that contributed to it, but he must have had some kind of hatred towards women in general before that, or some kind of anger, some kind of violence to do that.
A lot of the people that are listed down, like the 5 suspects that I've seen, generally seem to have like some kind of psychiatric background
Issue.
where it's like they're either schizoaffective or have some sort of like homicidal ideation or like schizophrenia where it's like, okay, well, this is making them really violent.
Yeah, but
like,
the issue is if you look at it, could it have been just somebody who was like a sociopath that could walk around like you or me,
possibly, yeah,
and not have any emotion towards them, but be extremely like have hatred towards a specific people or a specific trade, because at one of his crime scenes it did have something about Jewish people on the wall,
and it had
written
the
in
apron
blood.
there.
Yeah. So I think it had to be somebody who already had, these thoughts towards people. He already had hatred towards a specific kind of person. So what, you get a sexually transmitted disease, all of a sudden you turn that hatred towards other people and take out your anger. I don't, much more to say on that.
Yeah, I don't
But
know. It's wild.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because, technically a lot of the times what we see nowadays is like, a regular person, average Joe. One day they're doing their normal thing, their normal routine, going through the daily grind. Next thing you know, it's like soft target or something unusual like that. So that, I feel like Jack the Ripper is kind of like, this is his version of a soft target. It's like, okay, well, these are easy pickings for the most part. Yeah.
And the worst part is, like, after the first or second murder, from what I remember, all women were super scared to go out and prostitute, but they don't have a choice.
Yeah,
it's either you do your job or you die because you're starved to death.
Yep.
And it was sad because a lot of these women were like regarded as like good women, like they were regarded as like good people. It wasn't just because they're trade, and there is a lot of suspicion towards like who did it, because who would have done it. Yeah, and there's a lot of evidence in I literally can't get over this one picture I saw of the crime scene where I was like, wow. It was like, if you walked in, you'd be like, I will never unsee what I just saw. And I know that's, any crime scene you go to, it's not going to be good. But this was like, from your like belly button, for like the top of where your like chest is, all the way down to your like pubic bone, pretty much, and above, really and it and her face.
Yeah, like,
she didn't have a face,
unrecognizable.
I don't know. I would say he was a monster. I've never seen anybody who like
would mutilate somebody and have like no problem with it and just be able to walk away and be like, I'm able to go through my day now.
He was
I feel
very
so much better.
fixated on women's parts. He was very fixated on, like, the womb, the uterus. He would take out the uterus.
Yeah.
He would put it next to them. He would, like, very specific on what he took out of the body.
Dude, like the placement of it, too. It would be like on this shoulder would be like the uterus or something.
Yeah.
And it's like really methodical. And that's why, sure, there's the 5 mains, but then they also have like technically 11 in total, but it's.
There's
those
no
other
way
6
he
are
only
confirmed.
did 5 and I got away with it with such precision and it was such precise cuts, even though it looked like a mess, because it was a mess. The cuts were very surgical, which was very scary because it's like you knew what you were doing and you've done this before. And he'd do it. He had some, I'm not giving this guy any credit or any tap on the back, but he did have the balls to do it in public. He didn't do it in people's houses. He did it on a street, on a public street, and he would cut these women open. Oh, it was and he would cut them open where people would like walk to work. So like one of the first victims that they found, from what I read, I could be wrong because there sure probably was other victims. One of the first ones they found was like early in the morning, and the reason why she was found was because people were walking to work, and they're like, nah, I gotta go to work, so I'm gonna report this when I get there. So they like went and then reported it. So it was like it was there, but it was like, and if you look at the places today, which if you go to England, there is tours and there is
they also
money
have
off
a
of
museum,
it.
but they actually shut that down. They were like, no, it's too distasteful. We can't have a museum to honor Jack the
I
Ripper.
showed you the picture before.
Yeah.
I mean, how the hell do you put that up in a museum? I couldn't. I couldn't. But all the victims were, I wouldn't say very much loved. They were loved, but I don't know their current situation. And it's very sad to see, like, if it happened nowadays, he would have been 100% caught because the amount of stuff he like, left and the DNA he left. I just don't, and then to just suddenly stop.
Yeah, it's just too out of the blue.
There's no way. They, I know from what I remember, there was killings that happened in America soon after those killings stopped in England, where they're like, okay, this is like very familiar. Or like, from what I read, they thought it was like the Axeman of Velasquez, not the Velasquezman. It was the guy in New Orleans who, if you didn't play jazz, was that guy? I forgot it. They thought it was somebody else, but and it was very similar. Very similar. But that guy actually got executed. Wow. So jeez. I hope it was him because he actually got what he deserved in the end.
That's crazy.
But there's too many coincidences for him to just go, oh, okay, I decided I don't want to kill anybody anymore.
That's where, like, a lot of theories come in, where it's like, it's possible that he may have died from, like, a disease or something, or other natural causes, or that he was actually committed. Like, he got messed up somewhere, or, like, not attacked somebody to the extent where he got to murder them, but, like, vocalized it or acted aggressively towards them to the point where they escaped. And then we're like, this guy, like, was threatening to me. This person tried to kill me. Yeah. And they came in and just put him into an insane asylum.
I wonder if he got arrested and executed. I wonder if he... Oh, God, because there's so many documentaries you could watch about it. Yep. I watched a documentary years ago, so I couldn't even quote the name of the documentary, where it talked about this guy who was based in Australia, from what I can remember. And he was very violent towards his wife. He would sleep with prostitutes and got an STD from a prostitute. Dang. Eventually went to England, and all of a sudden the year he came to England is when those killings started. And then he went back to Australia, and then they caught him and he got executed. Wow. So they think that actually might be the guy, because the time period that he was there, in
Lines
England
up.
lines up, and his story lines up. Didn't like prostitutes. Got a sexually transmitted disease from a prostitute. Went to England. All of a sudden, those killings started happening of prostitutes. You know, and then all of a sudden they stop when he goes back and gets executed, and nothing ever happens again.
Yeah, that's a little too coincidental.
Just a little. It was really like very convincing. Where I was like, wow. And the guy was actually interviewed. The guy was actually one of the suspects. I forgot.
Wow,
His
jeez.
name was, but
I don't know if that's on the 5 that I have, but
I
I'm
don't know.
surprised.
He was interviewed though. He was definitely interviewed, where he was a suspect, not the prime suspect, but he was interviewed, and they let him go.
That's
and
wild.
They went, okay.
I mean, they interviewed so many people. They interviewed like all the butchers and their right-hand men and everything. All the barbers, all the doctors that were local to that area.
What about the morgues?
Oh, that's a good.
You think it
question.
could be
Yeah,
like
it possibly could have been a mortician because they
Think about
also are involved when it comes to like, surgical incisions to either weigh organs or anything like that, or just like clear the person out so that way they're ready to be embalmed and buried and everything. I now know the mortuary science of that day. But
That's what I wonder. I wonder if, like, I don't even know. Did they ever know if they were dead before he started doing these things to them? Because at the crime scenes, there's not like a lot of blood. Like there's blood, but there's not like.
That's actually one good point because that picture that they have of that person that was like really bad. Like,
that one was like, I feel real bad.
Would have been like blood all over the place, but surprisingly not.
There was not a lot of blood.
Strangled them to death first, and then did stuff. Because usually, what was the first thing you would do is like slice their throat.
That's what I thought. So he might have killed them before. And does that say something about him that he would kill them before?
Yeah, mutilating
them. So he didn't take pleasure in torturing them. He wanted them dead and then wanted to do things to them. So that might exclude like him liking the torture of people. So that I don't know if that would disclude him being a narcissist or being a sociopath, because sociopaths wouldn't care. I mean, generally, they would care more about themselves, so maybe... I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy, because it does seem like a lot of the stuff was post-mortem, where you would actually do the surgical, like, stuff that he would do. When
After the
fact.
Like,
dissecting their bodies. And
because
everything.
he would have known how to do that. But then again, that's a lot of ifs.
Yeah,
and there's not a lot of proof, because there's nothing left.
I mean, if it was like the forensic nowadays, they'd be able to determine, like, okay, this was done at this point and everything. Like,
now we're so advanced on... We can literally tell when we see a dead body, be like, that was sitting there for 2 hours and 50 minutes. Like, they have the science down to a T to tell how long that body was sitting there. At that point, they were like, we got to solve this crime. We're going to be in a lot of trouble if we don't solve this crime. It had everybody, not everybody, but everybody in that district very scared. And then he just disappeared, from what I could remember. So, I don't even know... I know there were suspects. I know a few of them, but not all of them. So, I mean, I don't know. That's all I know is the main synopsis of that.
I think that's a good gist of Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, that's a good synopsis.
Diving into everything.
Diving into the general gist of that man. Because I can't even...
Or a woman.
Woman. Or man/woman. They.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who's to say?
Yeah. Jack the Ripper. Jacqueline the Ripper.
Jacqueline the Ripper. Yeah. Oh my god. But I don't know. Should we dive into any yet?
I think.
Are you guys cool with doing a quick ad break and then we'll dive into the doc?
Yeah.
Do you like reading, but it's too difficult to possibly do?
Do you like reading a lot of murder stuff?
Well, technically, you don't have to do any reading. You could listen to it using audibletrial.com//space Zamboni. And then you can listen to all of your craziest things about Jack the Ripper or any other murder that interests you, and that there's a book of it that exists. Welcome back to Murder We Spoke, where we're talking about Jack the Ripper, also known as a couple of other names that I didn't even really know that he had different pseudonyms or aliases, I guess is another way of saying, like the Whitechapel Murder or Leather Apron.
Wow, I didn't know the Leather Apron. I mean, I figured the Whitechapel murder because
that makes sense.
That's where he was located.
Yeah.
I did not know the Leather Apron sounds.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that sounds like something out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something.
Do they
like
know
that.
he wore a leather apron? Or are they just guessing he wore a leather apron?
I think they're just guessing because I'm sure a lot of people that were involved with medical procedures or stuff like that, or even being a butcher.
What about a cloth apron? Didn't they use?
Probably too.
I mean, they weren't sanitary back then, so.
Probably too messy. Probably leather. Leather was big back in the day. Leather was like everything. You want something cool, you got in leather. You never really got like.
But people in this place where they could barely afford to pay
I'm
the
surprised.
rent.
Leather had to be very expensive, right?
Yeah.
Oh no. It's crazy, but that's what I'm thinking. I don't know. I don't know if it's right. I didn't actually look into like where the name derived from.
It's
I was
fine.
just like, this is pretty interesting. I didn't really hear a couple of different names.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that and the other thing that I didn't really know is that some of those letters weren't even written by Jack the Ripper. They were just sent in from the newspaper.
But that happens nowadays too.
Yeah.
Like they get a lot of like, do you know this man? And they'll get like 17,000 calls from people being like, I think it's my next door neighbor, and it's really not the next door neighbor.
Yeah.
They would like submit. I don't even know why they would do that.
Yeah, it was just to boost sales because they're like, well,
they'd be like, this is a new letter here from the Unabomber, and it's a fake letter.
Yeah, it's like something out of the National Enquirer. It's like, okay, well, here's this stuff. It's really bad. It's like in bad taste to even do anything like that, just so that way you can make a quick
human
buck.
Beings, isn't
but
it?
Yeah.
That I feel like that's like if you had to define human beings.
I feel like that's
it would be
sociopathic
making profit off of something horribly happening. Even if it's like eventually making, profit off of a murder that happened, it still is.
Yeah, bad show. Bad taste.
Bad humans. Ooh.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so that was one thing that I was like, that's pretty interesting. Along with that other little fact I have down there, back in 2006, the BBC History magazine did a poll and selected Jack the Ripper as the worst Briton in all of history.
Well, yeah, I mean,
that should have been a given, right?
If he was
he's
even
a horrible
British,
human being. Oh, that's true, yeah, because
it could have just been a foreigner that came in and killed people and then left, and it would explain the reason why it ended suddenly.
Hey,
Suddenly.
You mentioned the Australian. There was a person from Poland that was a suspect. The person that was German that was a suspect.
It would make more sense. But, you have to take that with a grain of salt, too, because, a lot of people, back then were not very friendly to people who weren't their people,
No.
So I take that with a grain of salt, too, because it's like, people's stereotypes of other people were very rampant back then.
Yeah,
like they're rampant now, but they're also could you imagine?
It was on steroids back in the day because now at least America's a melting pot where it's like, you're so used to seeing people from all over the world. It's just like, oh, right, that's a person. But like back in the day, I don't think travel wasn't that easy. You would have to go by carriage or, by ship. It's not like nowadays where you have planes and everything like that, and you could be in a different part of the world in like 3
5 to 6
or whatever.
hours. Yeah. I just feel like they didn't do enough research, and it's the sign of the times for them. Like, I feel like they had so many other problems in that specific area that they just wanted this to be like
swept under the rug.
Like, I mean, a lot of police were corrupt, and they were corrupt like forever from the history of like mankind. Like they were just all corrupt. So I can't place a finger on how much work they actually did on this, because I don't think they did a lot. From what I mean, they. Police do a lot, but I don't know if
they really care just because of the women's profession that they had.
And that's even to this day. A lot of women who go missing or are murdered, they don't get a lot of attention because of the profession that they do. They deem them like, oh, this person is of lower class. And, oh, they disappeared. They must have run away with somebody. That's what must have happened. Or they must have gotten in the wrong car with somebody. And it's just, they don't take the time to, like, care about these people, and it's very sad because they are people, regardless of their profession.
Yeah, it's crazy how some people get recognition about, like, okay, well, this person's missing, and they focus on that one person at the time, but yet there's so many other cases going on.
Yeah.
You know, just like this one. I mean, technically with Jack the Ripper, there was 2 murders in one day. But I feel like just because of, you know, how gruesome the situations were with people and everything, like, that's the only thing that really got the recognition. Is like, okay, there's somebody out there slashing these people up. You know, it could be you if you're walking around late at night and you stumble upon something that you're not supposed to.
It sparked a memory in my brain, what you just said with the 2 murders. So what actually happened was they feel like somebody almost caught him with the first one.
Yeah, so
he didn't get to. That was the only body that wasn't, like, messed up.
Yeah.
So they feel like they almost caught him. So he feels like he has to continue someplace else, and he moved. I want to say not even that far, honestly. No. If you
look at the
if
map
you take a look at the map, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I don't know if it's those 2 that are in the middle there. They're like just a couple of blocks away from each other.
It really wasn't far away from each other, or it was like right here to right here. I mean, in distance, you can't really see, but it relatively was not far from each other. So I wonder if this was like an impulse that he felt like he had to do or had to finish. I wonder if it was like an OCD thing, that he felt like he had to do. He had to finish, like an impulse almost. But, I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Like, that's the scariest thing. Is like, we have these horror movies and everything with, like, people like Michael Myers and, like, Jason Voorhees and everything. But in my opinion, people are always the scariest because you never know what's going on in their mind, and they could just snap on a dime.
Yeah.
It's
and
really
you're your neighbor, you're the most outstanding person that you've ever met, could be a murderer and you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even
hope
know.
not. Knock on wood.
But you'd be surprised.
Yeah, oh my God.
I don't doubt anything. Everybody is capable of, anything.
Yeah, that's why I always try and be nice to everybody. I'm like, okay, you're my friend.
Even if you're
cool.
nice to them.
I like you. Yeah, I know, but I hope
you know how many murder victims were nice to the people that they got murdered by?
I hope
it doesn't matter.
At least
to some
have
people,
a little
it
bit
just
of remorse
doesn't.
If I'm being nice to them, be like, and remember that time I gave you a Milky Way?
Yeah, it was
just really tasty, right?
Yeah, it just doesn't. It doesn't. I don't know. I just don't know. It could be anybody, and we coulda, woulda, shoulda, but we don't know.
Yeah,
and we don't have any clues, and we barely have any evidence that's like could hold up in court per se.
Yeah,
if the guy was still alive, which he definitely is not still alive.
Yeah, or hope not. Otherwise, he'd be immortal.
Or it was just a vampire.
Yeah. Oh my God.
But why?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yes, this is a little cartoon that I saw. This is how I wish Jack the Ripper was, not murdering people, but murdering a giant box of baked beans.
Yes, Jack.
And tooting a lot.
I like that.
But
I really appreciate that.
That would have been the better Jack the Ripper, or at least the only thing that would have been harmed is some baked beans.
He would have been voted the best Britain in England.
Yeah, at least then he'd be like, all right, he gave food to the needy and everything. At least that would have been one good thing, but no, unfortunately he did horrible, heinous acts.
Also, if you look at his outfit, what does that tell you? His outfit, at least what he was described in or what people describe him in is an outfit that's not worn by the lower class.
No, it was a very gentlemanly attire and everything.
It had to be somebody of higher class,
or at least like somebody that had a little bit of money to afford the clothes that Jack the Ripper wore and everything.
Yeah, like they think it is one of the many theories, and I don't know what evidence they actually have to like back that up, but they actually have theories that he was actually one of the Queen Victoria's sons. Or I think it was Queen Victoria at the time. One of the Queen's sons. And everything was swept under the rug because you know.
Yeah, you don't want
the feature
to look bad or anything.
And that would make sense on why he was wearing all that stuff, because who would wear that?
Yeah, the only thing I would think of is like, oh, yeah, that person is, they got to have some money. Educated.
And if you think educated, you can't think butcher.
No.
You have to think doctor.
Yeah.
Physician.
He's dressed like Sherlock Holmes.
He's kind of dressed like Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, like you got to think, like, who could afford that outfit? Like, who could afford that outfit?
Besides a magician, but I don't think magicians dressed that way back in the day.
They dress like clowns.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's scroll down.
But there we go. Well, there's the one link that has the 5 suspects that are the supposed suspects to be behind the Jack the Ripper killings and everything like that.
Okay, so would you like to do us the honors?
Sure. You got the clicker?
Yes, I got the clicker. Where am I clicking?
Oh, that top one? Yay. From Strawberry Toys.
Strawberry Toys?
Toys?
Oh, but this is toys. I'm like, what fucking website has Jack the Ripper information?
Okay. So yeah, there's the. So we have the first. I don't know why we getting all that, but yeah, let's scroll past that one. So there we go. We got our first suspect.
He looks
John Druitt.
already. I can say he already looks
like he fits
like
the bill,
the type.
right?
Yeah, the type. But I can't do that.
Yeah, he looks scholarly. He's reading a book. He's just got that. Who knows what's going on? But yeah. So
there is no scientific evidence. I'm sorry, I was reading this. I was like,
definitely.
Even though there's no concrete scientific evidence, there's no concrete scientific evidence for anything.
Yeah. Besides that he was sexually insane.
Yeah, well, I mean, true, but like, there was a lot of people who were sexually motivated. Like, I don't know. Sexually insane is a little...
Yeah, that's really like, oof, that's a hard... incriminating term to throw on somebody. Yeah.
So what would that have to do with slicing up a body?
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about? Like, I know I'm just making assumptions based on
maybe you taught biology or anatomy and physiology or something like that. So maybe you had a little bit of a background about some.
But he was a schoolmaster, which is like a principal. Yes. I'm pretty sure a schoolmaster is like the principal. Like almost like a principal figure. I don't think he's like
the president of a college.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, definitely not. Oh wait, there's more.
Oh yeah.
Let's go down there.
But yeah, so that was the first person. That one, I don't know. That one doesn't. To me, it didn't really seem to fit the bill. But I mean, they only give a brief description.
The fact that he was in Whitechapel, but he also was a sexual deviant. So that would mean he would be in the Whitechapel because there was prostitutes there. So that would make sense why he was there.
Yeah, but I don't know.
And then he died, right? It says right here.
Yeah.
His body was found floating in the Thames. And it was a suicide.
Possible suicide, unless he was caught, aggravating a woman and,
But look, it says that his body was found in the river, and it was found several weeks later, and that was around the time of the other murder. Yep. That makes no sense then, because then he wasn't there, he did not commit the crime. So,
I don't know. That's why it didn't really seem like that good of a fit to me. Then we have Carl Fagenbaum. This is the one that I believe was from Germany, German merchant sailor, psychopath who confessed to mutilating the women.
But then a lot of crazy people do
I mean, there are some people that are just it's me, I did this, and then it turns out,
you can't even
they didn't do it, they were just crying wolf,
You can't even trust that because, okay, proof. You said you mutilated women, proof.
Yeah, either that or somebody, I feel like sometimes they'll admit to doing it just for the notoriety.
Yeah, I don't, because he took a lot of stuff from them. He took, body parts. Yeah. You're telling me you did not have any proof? If you're gonna come to me with a big statement like that, you better have proof.
They should have been write a letter. See if this handwriting seems similar to the other letters that were written. Even though who knows which ones are real or which ones are fake. But I mean the ones with the body parts I feel like are kinda real.
He could have written into the police as one of those other people. I can't there is no evidence, but this guy is just because he said he did it, he's it.
Yeah, I
you
feel
know?
like he's a red herring.
Yeah, that would definitely be like, I don't know.
Yeah,
All right.
who knows? This is all just
Fancy
speculation.
Man.
So this is the one that everybody believes recently because that whole mitochondrial DNA evidence. They believe that Aaron Kosminski is the one that was the actual Jack the Ripper.
And he would know how to get away with it
Yeah.
because he was a police officer. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting.
But came from Russia, settled in London, and was Jewish, which also coincides with that sentence that was found about the apron, saying that like no Jewish person would be found guilty of committing this crime.
Yeah, which would throw them off of it and
Jewish,
not make them not think it was a Jewish person. That makes sense.
And was working as a hairdresser, which then
Okay, he would have the means to the end.
Yep. So
let's scroll down.
He
He has a
seems
little bit
incriminating, but who knows? Again,
He had a strong hatred for women and had homicidal tendencies. Well,
Yeah.
there you go.
yeah, and was sent to the asylum in 1889. So shortly after all the murders, that's why it seems like he could potentially be the actual Jack the Ripper.
This one
but it's only
sounds more-
speculation.
This sounds more plausible
Big
than
time.
any because it hits cues like hated women, strongly hated women. You know, the police officer, so he would know what they had.
Yep.
He would know what evidence they had and would know how to get away with it. And he would know what the evidence, what they would be looking for.
Yeah.
You know, he would have the means to an end. I can't assume either that this guy is it either. But I like this guy for the crime, as they would call it in
I really
police
like.
lingo.
I like the last one. I feel like the last person was pretty interesting in regards to. So this is the second to last one that's on this article. Francis Craig. Oh, yep.
Mary Jane Kelly's husband.
Well-known Victorian social reformer and everything like that. Lived in Whitechapel, several minutes away from the first Jack the Ripper murder scene.
He also
actually,
was suffering from mental illness.
maybe
But
this is the one that I'm thinking of
But-
because he had a wife that was a prostitute, and so what
he
they
may have
believe.
killed one of them. That's what they said. The one girl in. Remember we were talking about? I don't know if we talked about here or before. That they thought one of the victims wasn't really a victim. It was just like a setup from somebody who was outside to make it look like it was a Ripper murder.
Possibly.
I don't.
But that's what they suggest with one of the theories about Francis Craig is that due to his wife being found out to have been a prostitute, he murdered other prostitutes so that way he could get away with murdering her and go unrecognized. So that, I mean, usually a lot of the times if, somebody's spouse goes missing, of course it's generally a lot of the times the
Yeah.
the
But then
husband
would
or
you
the
go
wife,
around, if
unfortunately.
you were mad at your wife for being a prostitute, would you go around killing other people? Like,
No.
that's not, that, I understand if
I
he
wouldn't
killed
kill
his
anybody.
wife. I would understand if he killed his wife, is
Yeah.
the reason why they thought it was, one of them wasn't, wasn't a Ripper murder. That's a crime of passion.
Yeah.
This is a crime of homicidal tendencies. This is a crime of somebody who hated women. This guy is good for one of them, for sure. Like, he definitely killed his wife. I mean, there's literally, look at the husband.
Yeah, if I was in his shoes, I would have been like, "You're a prostitute. I'm getting a divorce."
I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. But then again, the suspect that you don't think would do it, it could be the person who would do it, So,
And this guy, I think is the one that I thought
You thought?
suit the bill. Yeah, Walter Sickert.
Walter Sickert.
Yep.
Okay.
They even claimed to have found DNA evidence which links Sickert to at least one of the Jack the Ripper letters. So, but he was known for painting prostitutes and believed that he would insert clues and symbols about Jack the Ripper murders into his own artwork, which is pretty crazy. And that's what they're saying is that only the true murderer would have been able to have painted these crime scenes and then, act them out.
I don't know. What background? Like, for me, it's like, I would need to know, the psychological background. It's certain information that you need to know. Like, did this guy have issues with his mom? Did this guy have homicidal tendencies? Is this guy seen? How do other people see him as? This is very general. Yeah, that's what I was like. This is very. this guy looks good because of the way he painted, but I really
But it also
can't.
seems like a red herring. I kind of,
Yeah,
correction,
you see
it
what
wasn't the
I'm-
last one, but I think the second to last one is the one that I think
Okay.
it was B. So, correction,
So,
go, if you scroll
this
up, I think
guy-
it's Francis Craig.
Okay. In my opinion,
Especially because
I
he's
think
like
it's this guy.
schizotypal and everything. Really?
not because
Aaron
of the DNA.
Kosminski?
Not because of the DNA. Not because of the DNA. I think it's because of the motive. I think the motive fits. I think him, especially what he wrote on the wall about Jewish people, and he's
Yeah.
Jewish. I think that he did not like women, as it says down here.
Yep.
He did not. He did not like women.
Had homicidal
Hated,
tendencies.
had homicidal tendencies.
And was
wasn't in
sent
an
to the
asylum,
asylum.
and then he died right after. So that if he was put in an asylum, that would be the reason why all the murder stopped.
And they
Yeah.
even, like, the police gave him the name Kosminski, too, for Jack
They-
the Ripper, which is weird.
Which is weird. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
I mean, do we have any idea on who the police were pinpointing? Exactly. I mean, like, I'm
apparently
sure
those
we
those five people were the main ones out of all the people that they
Yeah.
looked into. These five are the five that they believe were.
And this guy came later. This guy came like it says like at the bottom that he came. He was a relevant suspect like many years later. So they found him out through the DNA who he was, and it's very. I'm not convinced, but I cannot overlook this. No other person had hated women and had like super homicidal tendencies. Sexual tendencies, yes. Homicidal tendencies, yeah. You know, I mean, you have to think about it. It's like, do we know if he had actually had sex with these prostitutes? Or did he just deem them as like easy
Not
pickings?
sure. I like to think
know?
not because of
Yeah.
like
I would
how
like to not
badly they were
think
like.
not,
trying to-
but he cut their throats.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
the first thing.
And
yeah.
then he would do what he wanted with them.
Yeah, big
so he
time.
wasn't there for.
Now, I feel like if that was the case, he would,
know?
because it's a lot of the times, if I think if I remember correctly, I saw an article about how long it would take him to do the stuff that he did to these women, and they said that it would probably roughly be about like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
So
Jesus.
5 minutes in order to do all of that like work and everything, that's not a long time for
Yeah.
participating in it. That, and also another thing that they were saying is that a lot of the people that were suspected of being Jack the Ripper were impotent. So they had something going on with their
That
genitals
makes
and
sense,
everything
too.
like that.
But
which
why
is
would they
another
aim
reason
towards?
Which is another reason
prostitutes?
why
Yeah.
they would hate the prostitutes is
True.
because they can't act out sexually.
True.
So this would be their sadomasochistic way
I
of
wonder-
getting their sexual fulfillment out.
I
It's-
wonder if we could get more information. Like, I wonder if I'm sure people have tried to get more information on this guy. I mean, how do you even do that? You know?
I think it's the artist because
I don't know.
painting the
Yeah, it's kinda
prostitutes
crazy, right?
is interesting. Hiding
Yeah.
the clues is interesting.
Yeah.
Back then,
It's like a
it
Da
was
Vinci Code kind of
traditional
thing.
studying, so you would know anatomy.
Yeah.
True.
So like there wasn't.
But you
like,
wouldn't know
as
the
much
inside
abstract-
anatomy where, like, your uterus
yeah,
is.
I think a
you
lot
would-
of artists
I
at
don't
the
know.
time would because it was very
True.
traditional to be an artist back then.
Yep.
I don't know.
And then also, you're painting prostitutes. You know where they're going. You know their routine. If you're talking
Yeah.
to them actively,
True.
I don't know.
I don't know. The issue is it's between those two, and how do you even is it for me it's great. We do all this research for him. We do all these things to try to figure out who he is, but in the end, does it end up helping us? Because
No,
because I think what we personally what we should be doing in these cases is trying to find the people who may be alive. Now, like, this guy is definitely dead. He either was in an asylum,
Yeah.
he was someplace else,
Yep.
he killed a lot of people. I feel like our sources, like all these sleuths, could potentially, aim their subjects at people who are possibly still alive. It's great we want to research this. I love researching this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like my,
Yeah, just as interesting seeing what makes like people tick and
Tick,
everything
yeah.
like that, or at least like these people, because these are like the deviants of society, right? These
Yeah.
are people that you hope not to encounter and everything like that. But at least that, like, it also kind of prepares you in case you do encounter a situation like that, like looking into these things about how to protect yourself more so.
But even looking up these things, like, yes, it could prepare you.
Yeah,
for,
but
if
there's
it ever
only so
happens
much
to you.
preparation that you
But,
can
like,
do.
if a person sneaks up behind you,
that's
you're
it.
dead.
Essentially.
You know, like, I
mean, technically, when I was younger, like, the main reason my family, or at least my mother, was big into, like, showing me stuff like this was to make me afraid of strangers.
Yeah,
which
it
did
makes
its
sense.
job. I'm terrified of, like,
I
people,
know.
essentially. I'm, like, very cautious about, like...
It wasn't even the stranger danger aspect in this case. It was women doing their jobs.
Yeah.
This wasn't something out of the norm for them.
Yeah.
They, some of these women, I feel like they must, like Alex said, he made a good point. They must have known this guy. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not necessarily true either, but it's either way, they must have been familiar with this guy.
They were at least familiar with, like, where they would frequent and everything. Or just, like, or sometimes, who knows, maybe it's just serendipitous. He could have just been like, oh, all right, well, this is where I know there's a lot of prostitutes. Okay, so I'm going to go here and see... Kind of like fishing. You wait and you see what happens, and then, if somebody catches on the line, then
like
that's it.
Like the Night Stalker, if you think about it.
Yeah, Night Stalker changes motives all the time, which is crazy.
Yeah, he changes motives, but he also stalked the victims weeks in advance. Yeah. Could this have happened in the sense where he had to find the right person to kill, to quench his I would call it his impulse appetite, because... If you think about it, because, like I said before, that he went back, they think he got caught murdering a woman, or somebody came around, he wasn't able to disfigure them and do what he felt like he needed to do, so he literally killed another person the same night and murdered and dismembered her. Is that an appetite? Is that something that, an impulse?
I feel like it's like some sort of OCD or something like that.
It has to be. There's no way.
Where it's like, there's got to be some additional psychological issue going on to justify him going to another person so quickly and just being like, okay, well, I got to do this. My brain is telling me to do this. So.
Yeah. There's no way. I feel like he must have had some. Well, we obviously know he wasn't right in the head because he killed
big
people.
Time.
But I feel like we definitely must think about what mental disorder he had to think about, like, the MO, and then from there we can go, oh, this MO fits so and so. Because we need to figure that out before we figure out who he is, because we have to figure out why he would do these things.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing about like even looking into these people, right? Psychopaths, serial killers, whatever you want to refer to them as, is like the whole mental health aspect of the thing. It's like, your mental health is the biggest thing, and it honestly controls everything about you, because your brain controls everything. Yeah. So it's like, if you have any issues, definitely get some help. Yeah. Don't go around like doing horrible things.
Yeah, like
oh my God.
I just, this was a rough one to like do research into. It definitely was an issue seeing photos of things and people drawing. They have drawings of photos of the women, and it's
gruesome.
It's bad. It's
like, I don't understand how people could do that and then just be able to walk away and not be fazed by it. Like, if that ever happened, like, even seeing the pictures are haunting. It's like, you see them and you feel like, ugh.
And it almost is like, if you look at it, like, I just think people look at it wrong. I feel like people should look at it, look at the case. This does not feel sexually motivated. This, maybe he attacked prostitutes because it was easy. I do not think he did this out of a sexual aspect. I think he did this out of an impulse he did this out of, like, because he had an impulse to do it. Whether it was OCD, I think someone has something to do with that, but I also feel like it had something to do with the guy didn't like,
I feel like it could be a mix, because I feel like...
It's definitely mixed, but it's definitely not sexual. That's why I said, I was like, whether the women were positioned like they were going to be sexual, I don't think it had something to do with, like, sex. I think the prostitutes were easy pickings. I think they were there. There was plenty of them. They were easy to get. They were easy to convince to come with. And especially if you were not of that same class, you had money.
Yep.
And that was what most prostitutes wanted back then because they were poor. Mm-hmm. And if you put the pieces together, at least we get some kind of MO of, like, how this guy's mind kind of worked. Mm-hmm. Is that he would know that they were accessible. It wouldn't matter who it was. Because you can see, if I scroll back up.
I feel like he probably thought that they wouldn't be missed because they're prostitutes.
If you look at these women, none of these women are of the same age.
Yeah.
None of these women look, besides the dark hair, we can, I don't know how hair.
Yeah, there's no, like, actual pattern between their appearance or anything.
She's young, she's middle-aged, she's old, probably old. I just meant like there is no pattern in age. No. There's no pattern in how these women look because they all look different. They don't all look the same. So it's not like he's focusing on because this
like
one
strictly
woman
young
did this
women
to me.
or like girls with blonde hair or something like that.
So if you look at the psychology of stuff, so they say like a lot of killers will kill women. Not all of them. Let me make note of this. Not all of them. Some killers will kill based on specific looks of people. I don't think this had to do with it. I think these women were easy pickings. I think I think the killer thought nobody would miss them. I think the killer would thought they're so low below me that nobody in my circle will ever ask about these women. At least at the time. That's my theory. That's my synopsis of that.
I feel like it could have been like a little bit sexual based. But, you know, again, I don't know how 100% that is. Especially if, like, you're going in there with the idea of, like, having coitus or whatever. But you can't fulfill that. So, you know, especially if you're already not mentally there.
I wonder if it was like like I said, like my pieces that fit together for me is that he... Obviously, people of higher class did sleep with prostitutes of lower class. That's a well-known fact, okay? To this day, okay? I feel like this guy had a sexually transmitted disease. I think he got it from
like a prostitute or something.
I think he already had tendencies of obsession and like extreme anger.
Yeah.
Okay?
Big time.
Because that's an obsession. He wasn't just killing women like most murders does. He was killing prostitutes. And only
that's
prostitutes.
the only pattern that he had was that they were prostitutes.
Yeah. And
that's it. That's the only thing that fit the bill.
I think he thought they were easy. I think he thought he could get away with it. I think he thought he was so cocky that he would do it out on the street and wouldn't even care if somebody would walk by. He did it out on. It wasn't like a back alley street. It was a main road.
There was a lot of people that would say that they saw him, or somebody like dressed similar to somebody that would fit the bill of Jack the Ripper.
Probably like he normally walked in his normal clothes to do this. You know, I don't. It could be sexually motivated, but I don't think it led to sex.
No.
You know, if it was, so I think this was more like an anger. A hatred, not even a hatred, maybe towards them. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't like towards them. Maybe it was towards, like if he got a sexually transmitted disease from a prostitute, maybe he was just continually envisioning that prostitute who gave him a sexually transmitted disease over and over and over and over and over and over. You know, or 5 women that we know of.
Or 11.
Or 11 women.
But all right, with all of this said...
Yes.
That's Murder We Spoke, Episode 1, involving Jack the Ripper. I don't know who the next person would be, but I thought this was really interesting.
You will see.
Yeah.
You'll have to stick around and find out.
So as we think about that, be careful out there on the streets wandering
around.
Don't
to strangers.
Don't stay out late at night.
Okay.
Don't talk to strangers. And make sure to...
Subscribe.
Just subscribe and hit that like button. And if you have somebody that you're interested in having us research and talk about...
Please drop a comment below.
Please drop a little notation down there in the comment section. And with that said, thank you all for watching, and we bid you adieu. Bye.